Bob Rorlak with the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you and welcome the viewers for tuning in to our 2019 candidate interview series for the City of Tampa mayoral election. The Chamber is focused on policy, not politics, and while we do not endorse candidates, we want to make sure our members and the business community are informed of where the candidates stand on the business issues. We're honored today to have City Councilman Mike Suarez, who's a candidate for mayor for the City of Tampa, with us here today. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bob. Always a pleasure.
I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Our first question. As we record this, we're just under 6 weeks from Election Day. Now that we're in the final stretch, can you give us a brief, about 30 seconds, update on your campaign and what message you want to deliver to the voters here in this final stretch?
Here's what's happening. In this last few weeks that we have, I've gotten the endorsement of the firefighters and the ATU unions, primarily because they understand that I know more about what goes on in the city and how to deal with city workers. In addition, I was just endorsed by former Senator and Governor Bob Graham. He understands the what we need to do with leadership here in the city of Tampa. In addition, my tagline is "Every neighborhood is Tampa." We are going to have an endorsement of several of the different homeowners association presidents and leaders throughout the city who are endorsing me. The reason why is because we have a neighborhood bill of rights that we have been pushing so that we can talk about not only downtown issues and business issues, but also issues that are important to people where they live.
Okay, very good. Our next question is semi-related. It's about workforce housing. What zoning or policy changes would you support to address the growing workforce housing needs in Tampa?
There is one particular issue that we need to deal with when it comes to workforce housing. We need to provide transportation in addition to housing. If you look at Minneapolis-St. Paul, you'll see that they had the Green Line, which was created in order to, and they had the collaborative fund that was created by government, by businesses, and by community foundations throughout their area. I want to do the same thing here along the most ridden corridor, which would be the north-south corridor from the University of South Florida along Nebraska and Florida avenues down to downtown Tampa. That's the first start. If we can raise, $10 to $20 million, we can invest in providing some more workforce housing along the corridor so that it's easier for them to find ways to get into the downtown area, find areas that are going to work for us, and create a real bus rapid transit system that will serve the people that need it the most.
Very good. Moving on to our next issue, it's about the budget. The city's budget is one of the mayor's biggest responsibilities. Some state that budget and the economy experts anticipate that there will be a slowdown during the next term for whoever is mayor. How would you prioritize spending during a downturn, and where could we anticipate potential cuts or tax increases under your leadership?
Well, as you all know, I was one of 2 people that voted against the budget 2 years ago, primarily because I felt like we didn't do enough to cut back on some things that we're adding into it. The mayor insisted on a tax increase. We added about somewhere in the neighborhood of about $9 or $10 million to the budget because of the millage rate increase. But we also were spending about $6 or $7 million. Had we not done that, right now we're about a $6 million hole in the budget without anything else happening. We would have only been about $1 million difference. I had suggested about $4.2 million in cuts at that time. I'm not afraid to look at the budget and be able to cut back on some of the things we do. We have to make sure our services are protected, especially public safety, but at the same time, we have to be smarter in the way that we deal with the budget process. I thought that budget 2 years ago was the wrong approach because we went to raising the millage rate first and not looking at cutting back on some of our budget. When I'm the mayor, that's the first thing I'm going to look at before we start looking at any tax increases.
Okay, very good. Our next question is focused on permitting. Tampa has been considered a difficult city to go through in terms of the permitting process. What will you do for the city to earn a reputation as a safe but permit process friendly location?
Well, when the current administration first started in 2011, they had talked about streamlining the permitting process. Part of that was our purchase of a enterprise type of computer program in addition with the county that was supposed to solve a lot of these problems, and it has not. We are still finding it very difficult for people to get through the permitting process in a timely manner. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that we'll work with our construction services department to see where is the real bottleneck at. Why is it that we're not doing it? If it's because we don't have enough personnel, we need to meet and talk about that. But we need to find efficiencies within the system to make sure that people are treated fairly, that they have an idea of when their permits are going to be ready, and then to get those permits approved as soon as all of the necessary paperwork is there. I don't think that anybody should say, I expect something within 6 weeks, and then say, we're going to provide it in 6 weeks, but it actually takes 12 weeks. I think that's a terrible standard to try and meet. We need to make sure that when we make a commitment to the business community or anyone else out there, that we keep those promises.
Okay, very good. Our next question is focused on home rule. Local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years. Do you agree that preemption has become a problem in Tallahassee? If yes, how would you work to establish a productive relationship with our legislative delegation?
Well, I've been a leader on this issue through the Florida League of Cities and through the Suncoast League of Cities. I'm on their advocacy team for the legislature, so I do have a lot of relationships up there. The problem is that when you have one-party rule in Tallahassee, it makes it much more difficult to try and solve some of the problems that are created. A great example of the preemption, one that's being introduced by Rob Bradley, who I don't know personally, but a lot of my friends know him and say he's a terrific guy in Jacksonville, a senator from Jacksonville. He wants to be able to control community gardens on a statewide basis. That makes no sense whatsoever. Every city should have the right to determine what rules are going to fit in for their city. There may be some cities that want to do more for their citizens. There's some that might want to do less. The legislature should get out of the business of trying to rule cities. I think that we saw the last Speaker of the House, Richard Corcoran, famously came down to Tampa and said all he would need is 90 days in order to be able to solve all our problems. You and I both know that is a ridiculous standard to meet. We need to make sure that when we talk with our legislators that this is a better way of ruling folks that are down here, making sure that we are, because we're the closest to the people, we provide the services necessary. Let us run with it. The business community here locally, the community, the neighborhoods, they know what's best for our community, and we want to make sure that they understand that we do not like preemption on all the time, and we've been pushing that for some time.
Good. Next question is on economic development. Utilization of public-private partnerships continues to be an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities for P3s do you see in the city of Tampa?
Well, I just mentioned one a few minutes ago when it comes to the corridor, the north-south corridor, and creating a fund specifically to solve a problem. The problem is affordable housing or workforce housing. I think that P3s are available, but we understand that you need to have city dollars or county dollars in order for private businesses to get in. When we're talking about transportation, as an example, those successful P3 projects have significant amounts of dollars that are put into it. After we settle this lawsuit with the offer transportation dollars that we're going to receive, it's about $34 million to the city, in addition to another 165 that's going to HART. I believe that we'll be able to partner with some businesses out there and say, here's how we can solve some problems using dollars that go to transportation. And if we are able to get the right partner, I think that it'll be incredibly successful. Partnerships between and collaborations between government and business are too important not to go out there and reach out for it. But it means that we have to have some skin in the game in addition to the businesses having some skin in the game.
Okay, great. And you've mentioned this a couple times, but on transportation, we all have a list of transportation projects that we want the revenue from the sales tax increase to go towards. But I want to hear the first and most important transportation investment you want to see. You may have already discussed that some, but elaborate on that.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do when I'm mayor of Tampa in the first 100 days is that we are going to finish the study that we're doing right now for the extension of the streetcar. And we are going to start the implementation of paying for that. If we have the monies available from All for Transportation, we can do it on our own, even without HART, in order to extend this. We are going to get the dollars that we receive. We're going to create a fund where we are going to leverage those dollars over a 30-year period, bond that out. We'll have lots of money available for us to extend it up to the Tampa Heights area. In addition, we're going to work on, over the next 4 years, that plan to figure out if we're going to provide bus rapid transit in partnership with HART in certain areas of the city, if we're going to extend the streetcar from where it's going to be at Tampa Heights into other parts of the Central Business District, or over into the West Tampa area, or over into Ybor. We're going to make sure that that's the first thing we talk about when it comes to transportation.
Okay. On leadership, what is the role of Tampa's mayor? How does that role evolve over the duration of your term as mayor?
The mayor's position is a collaborative position. There are some people that believe, because it's a strong mayor system, that you order something to be done and it gets done. That's not the way it works. It is a strong mayor position, but it doesn't mean that you have all the power to do certain things. You have to be able to reach out to county leaders, business leaders, neighborhood leaders, and be able to collaborate with them in order to solve problems. I will tell you this, I have a lot of good ideas, I think, and there are a lot of people outside of my orbit and people that I may not have even met that have a lot of great ideas. I want to make sure that we get the best ideas possible for us to become a much better city than we are now. We've done a lot of great things over the last 7.5 years, and I'm proud of the fact that I've been involved in it. But I do believe that the mayor's position should be more collaborative. And I will be one of the first people to tell you that when you come to my office and you talk to me, or I go to your office and I talk to you, that we're going to have an honest and frank conversation. We're never going to talk about things that we can't honestly say to each other face to face. We're not going to be the type of administration where there's not going to be an open door policy. I will make sure that we try and do that with all the leaders out there.
We've touched on several important topics to the business community here in Tampa. Before we wrap up, is there a priority you have that we didn't discuss, or something you would like to reemphasize?
Well, again, my neighborhood bill of rights is the most important thing that I'm dealing with. And I want you to know that even though I'm talking to a business community by video, the neighborhoods are what causes the business community to be stronger. And here's why. When we're looking at bringing in other companies, when we're looking at companies expanding, some of the first things that your employees or even your leadership are going to ask about in those companies is, how good are the neighborhoods? How good are the schools? And so what I'm going to make sure is we're going to have a liaison directly to the Hillsborough County School Board. Even though we don't have operational control, we're going to find ways that we can work together to bring up the skill level of those folks that are graduating from high schools throughout Hillsborough County, so that they will be able to become productive employees and leaders throughout the city of Tampa. And that means apprenticeship programs. I'd like for us to do more of that in our CRA areas. I presented and had passed an ordinance to allow that. I want to see that we do some apprenticeship programs within our city. And in addition, make sure that the school board understands that we are there as a partner and not as an adversary when it comes to providing the kind of education necessary to keep people here in the city to grow and to thrive.
Okay, very good. And where can voters go to learn more about your campaign and your position on the issues most important to them?
You can go to my website, mikefortampa.com. I am on Twitter at Mike for Tampa. I'm on Facebook at Mike Suarez for Tampa's Mayor on Facebook. I'm also accessible at email at mike@mikefortampa.com. In addition, you can call me, 813-489-9415. Call me up. That goes directly to my phone. I can't promise that I'll answer it every time because I have other calls that come in. Actually, just before I started, somebody was calling me on my phone. So we'll hopefully be able to talk together, and you'd love to get your ideas out there, any of the business community that's on this particular video.
Perfect. Well, on behalf of the 1,400 members at the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your time. and willingness to do this today. Thank you for your service on council and your interest in continuing to serve the citizens in Tampa. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.